Why is your electric bill rising even though you're using the same amount of power? Virginia residential customers paid about 18% more per kilowatt hour in 2023 than in 2021. Not because they used more power, because one county, Loudoun County, decided to become the data center capital of the world, and the bill got quietly split among everyone else. But the strange part comes next. The companies actually causing this load are paying less per kilowatt hour than you are. That is not a side effect. That is how the system was designed to work. To understand why, you need to grasp what AI actually costs to run. Training a single GPT-4 class model consumes roughly 50 gigawatt hours, enough to power 4,600 American homes for a year. One model, once. But training is not the real story. Every ChatGPT query uses about 10 times more electricity than a Google search. Multiply that by hundreds of millions of users every day, indefinitely, and you have a load that never stops. U.S. data centers consumed 200 terawatt hours in 2023, 4% of all American electricity. The Department of Energy projects that share could hit 12% by 2028. Ireland's data centers already consume 21% of the country's electricity, up from 5% in 2015, and grid operator EirGrid has warned of blackout risk. That is a documented present crisis in a developed country. The US is on the same trajectory, just larger and faster. That sounds like a grid engineering problem until you see who actually pays to solve it. So, who pays for the grid upgrades? Not Microsoft, not Google, not Amazon. You do through a regulatory mechanism called rate-based expansion. Turns out the answer was buried in utility regulation all along. Here is how it works. Utilities are regulated monopolies. When they build new infrastructure, a transmission line, a substation, a generation plant, they add that capital cost to something called the rate base. Think of the utility as a landlord legally allowed to raise rent on every tenant whenever they renovate, even if only one tenant requested it. The guaranteed return on that rate base, typically 9 to 11% annually, is paid by all ratepayers through higher per kilowatt hour charges. Dominion Energy's grid expansion plan for Northern Virginia, driven explicitly by data center demand, runs into the billions. Every Virginia household pays for it over 20 to 30 years. The data centers themselves negotiate long-term contracts at below retail rates. Lawrence Berkeley National Laboratory confirmed in its 2024 report that these contracts do not fully recover the cost of the infrastructure built to serve them. The shortfall lands on residential customers and small businesses. That sounds efficient on paper until you see the second mechanism running underneath it. To keep data centers powered around the clock, utilities need reliable 24/7 generation. Renewables cannot yet fill that gap. 2,600 gigawatts of clean energy projects are stuck in interconnection queues. So Georgia Power delayed coal plant retirements. Dominion extended natural gas operations. The costs of those extended plants flow to consumers through fuel adjustment clauses, automatic billing mechanisms requiring no new regulatory vote. PJM, the grid operator covering 65 million people, revised its demand forecast upward by 40,000 megawatts in 2023, largely because of data centers. Capacity costs rose. Those costs pass through to your bill. Tech companies will tell you they buy renewable energy certificates, but a certificate purchased in Texas does not change the physical fact that a data center in Virginia is drawing power from a gas plant at 3 a.m. On a 24/7 basis, AI infrastructure is currently extending fossil fuel operations, documented in regulator-approved utility plans. The hidden part is not the server, it is the business model that keeps the cost off the tech company's books and onto yours. That is exactly why this persists. Every actor in the system benefits from it continuing. Utilities earn a guaranteed return on every dollar of new infrastructure, so more data center demand means more rate base, more profit. Tech companies externalize the infrastructure cost onto ratepayers and pay below retail for power. State governments compete for data center investment with tax incentives, treating the electricity cost trade-off as someone else's problem. The someone else is the household paying the bill. Virginia's State Corporation Commission has opened proceedings to examine this cost shifting. Ratepayer advocacy organizations are filing in state utility dockets, the public proceedings where rate cases are actually decided. That is where the leverage exists, not in Washington, in state capitol hearing rooms where most people have never set foot. The regulatory framework governing U.S. utilities was built for slow, predictable load growth. AI data centers are adding gigawatts of demand in years, not decades. The framework has no mechanism to force large industrial customers to pay the full marginal cost of the infrastructure their load requires. Until that changes, through state utility commission rulings, updated cost allocation rules, or federal grid policy, the cost of powering the AI economy will keep being distributed to the people least positioned to negotiate their way out of it. Your bill is not rising because of your choices. It is rising because the rules were written before anyone imagined a single building could consume as much power as a small city, and no one has rewritten them yet. The one concrete step available to you right now, look up your state utility commission's docket on data center cost allocation and submit a public comment. It takes 10 minutes, and it is the actual mechanism regulators are required to read. If this changed how you think about your electric bill, subscribe. We cover the hidden systems behind everyday costs every week.